Let me just ask you plainly, have you ever lied about your race?
No, because never have I been asked, "Are you human or not human?" Right? So yeah,
those words
race,
like
race in a as a construct again is a fluid understanding. So I would say no.
it's one thing to embrace the questions as an academic matter.
Right.
It's another thing to just actually be honest and transparent about who you are. And I think that's where people are having trouble with you, Rachel. I think they feel that you have been, for whatever reason, and perhaps wonderful reasons, acting like you're something that you are not.
Right. Well, I definitely am not white. Nothing about being white describes who I am. So, what's the word for it? I mean, the closest thing that I can come to is if you're black or white, I'm black. I'm more black than I'm white. So, on a level of values, lived experience currently, I mean, just in this moment, that's the answer. That's the accurate answer from my truth. But I do ask, I hope that the dialogue continues to push against what is race, what is ethnicity.
Let me go back to something you just said a few moments ago. You just said, I'm not white. I know I'm not white.
Right.
In 2002, you filed a lawsuit against Howard University alleging discrimination on the basis of you being white in a predominantly black university. How do you explain those two things?
I was 7 months pregnant, right before my second year of grad school, my last year of grad school started, and just checking to see if everything's intact because the chairmanship had changed, and he's like, "What scholarship? You don't have a scholarship. You have white relatives. You can, who can probably afford to pay for this, and you can come back when you're back in shape and have a 1-year-old." And other people need opportunities. Definitely, that was an injustice. It's one of the few times that I actually have stood up for myself.
In essence, that's a lawsuit that says, I'm white and I'm being treated poorly because of it.
The discrimination taking place in that moment is the individuals terminating the scholarship perceiving me to be white. Beautiful.
A lot of people have made comparisons to the transgender community and how you can feel one way inside and your physical body may not match that.
Right.
Do you consider this to be something like that?
I finally had a chance to read Caitlyn Jenner's piece, in the magazine, and really just, and I cried. Because I resonated with some of the themes of isolation, of being misunderstood, especially in this very high pressure, high risk, low trust, pressured, stressed, even borderline attacked experience in my life right now.
Do you feel like a little bit under siege by all of this?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. But I've really tried to kind of check that a bit and try to be present for my kids, my sister, and the movement, and really see what's best for that right now and make strategic decisions for that. But I am going to need to do a little regrouping and be able to really process all the implications now as I move forward.
Hey everyone, this is Common Denominator. Rachel Dolezal possibly just proved her point and shut down all of her critics. What do I mean by this? She was just interviewed. You just saw the interview, NBC, and there are a few key points I want to bring out. She mentioned she's not white. She brings up the construct of race, and she points out quite academically why race is a weak construct and how I mean, she really outsmarted this interviewer. Rachel Dolezal wins. She wins, hands down. And I'm going to tell you why. Once she grabbed a hold of the transgender community and the feelings, once she grabbed a hold of feelings, she was sure to win. And let me tell you why. Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, according to Rachel, Caitlyn Jenner's piece in the magazine, I think it was Vogue magazine or Vanity Fair magazine, resonated with her. It resonated with her. She feels that inside she is in fact black. Now, why is this important? If Caitlyn Jenner can feel like a woman, though she has a penis, or he has a penis, and 6 children, and biologically is still a man, feelings in this new age in which we live trumps reasoning. It trumps biology. We cannot measure her feelings. We can't qualify. I'm pretty sure if she were to sit for a lie detector test, that she would pass. Hands down, I think she would pass. She really believes that she is black. The transgender argument, it used to be more heavily scrutinized, but I think the PC culture that has spread across the Western world has laid a foundation for acceptance for pretty much anything. However, there are some groups which I believe will never gain acceptance, and they are trying to gain acceptance, such as pedophiles. They are doing everything in their power to justify their pedophilia. However, it involves a child, a minor, who is unable to make that decision, so it won't fly. But in situations such as transgender, or in Rachel's case, transracialism, it's not hurting anyone. It's a personal feeling. We can't qualify it. It's not scientifically measurable, at least not yet. And even if we were to successfully be able to measure it, I have a feeling that in this culture in which we live, her feelings, this person's feelings, would once again trump all data. So Rachel wins. Rachel Dolezal wins. She mentions in the interview, I'll post the link to the full interview in the description box, that she casts doubt on her birth parents. She wasn't born in a hospital. She's not sure. She says she's not sure if they are in fact her birth parents, which I think is a silly argument, because that could be quickly refuted. She she hasn't had a DNA test, she mentions, which really wouldn't change much anyway, because I think she was just answering the question to answer the question, arguing to argue from an academic point of view. She sounded like a lawyer, to be honest. And she won the argument because she cast doubt, reasonable doubt. And that's really all you need. But even if they were to prove that those were in fact her parents, it still doesn't change the fact that she feels like she's black. Back to the feelings. Feelings will dominate this entire argument from here on out. And I think this is so interesting, that the timing of this, because it's so close to Caitlyn Jenner's reveal that it's still very fresh. It almost has eclipsed some of Caitlyn Jenner's reveal, because the conversation shifted so quickly to her now. So it actually benefits her argument when you think about it. Discussing the case against Howard University in terms of discrimination, she argued that very well. Now, just to let you know, I don't believe in anything, transgender, transsexual. I don't believe in the validity of it, but I have to accept it based on society's acceptance of it. I have to accept that these people are who they say they are, but I don't believe it. But for the sake of for the sake of a lack of argument and a lack of, and to avoid problems, I'll accept it no matter how ridiculous it may seem. I have to accept it because that's what they say, that's what they feel. Back to feelings. So I have to accept it. I don't believe it, but I'll agree to I'll agree to their definition for sake of agreement. But they're not going to change my thinking on this. Back to the case. They perceived her as a white woman. So she argues that that's their perception. So necessarily she would have to argue from the point of a white woman, even though she claims she's black. She'd have to argue from that position because that's the position they put her in. And in fact, she has a good case because it was discrimination. They said that she could just go and get some money from her white family, some relatives, and that other people were more deserving. Very, very interesting. Yes, is that a case of racial discrimination? You bet it is. And I'm not sure how the lawsuit turned out, but it appears to be, I believe it to be racial discrimination. But so that argument was won as well. One thing about Rachel, you can tell she's very, very educated, and she's thought this through deeply, and it has affected her to her core. It has really shaken her to the core, where she feels that she has to continue in this person. She stepped down from the NAACP. So she's no longer in that position, but it's not changing. You know, she could have gotten that position, like she argued, regardless of race. They didn't ask her for her race. And I've heard that the NAACP was started by whites anyway, so that's a moot point. The argument for transgenders and gays has been won mainly on the notion of feelings. I feel this way. I feel attracted to this sex. I feel as if I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. I feel I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, etc. I feel I'm a black person trapped in a white person's body. the argument for transracialism. When she grabbed a hold of the arguments of the transgender community, when she mentioned that she resonated with portions of what Caitlyn Jenner went through, the transgender community has worked hard to establish this foundation. And a lot of people, I don't know, out of people just want to respect them, and they just don't want to argue the fact that it might seem silly. They just want to accept them for who they are and move on. And that's it. And now we're faced with another sort of situation in which we may have to just bite the bullet on this, accept the fact that she's feeling these things, and move on. So in the minds of the listeners, when she mentions that she has resonated with Caitlyn Jenner on some of the things, being trapped, or I forget the exact term, the listeners automatically equate her experience and that of the transsexual, which it melds them into one. She's saying, hey, look, it's the same, and she's winning, and she will win. I was listening to some commentary. Don Lemon, CNN, says she's delusional. But now that she has successfully melded this argument of feelings, based on feelings, that's the common denominator. Feelings. Doesn't matter if it's transgender, if it's gay, if it's transracial, it's her feelings. And in a PC world, we must respect feelings, despite the scientific data. He says she's delusional. But this argument is based on the same foundation of feelings, which apparently, and I mean this facetiously, cannot be contested. So if her argument fails, the transgender argument fails. And Don Lemon correctly mentioned that it would set the transgender community back 100 years. And that is completely correct. So the transgender community is now stuck in a corner, because now they have to either accept her or risk their own credibility. This is really a fascinating argument that she's proposing, and she wins. She completely wins. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. This is Common Denominator. Thanks, and subscribe and share. Thank you.